In this tutorial we're going to show how we can estimate the wage function in chapter 3 of Gujarati's Econometrics by example. In essence, what we want to talk about in this tutorial is qualitative explanatory variables, i.e. where we have a qualitative factor featuring in a regression. So for instance, what we can see here is we have 3 qualitative variables, these being gender, race and union. Gender indicates whether someone is male or female, race indicates non-white or other, and union indicates whether they're a member of a union or not. So all these variables take a value of 1 or 0. What we're interested in doing is estimating the wage equation and then looking at the interaction between some of these qualitative variables and our quantitative variables such as education and experience. So our initial starting point is just going to be to estimate the wage function and replicate table 3.1 in Gujarati. So to do this we simply select Analyze, Regression and Linear. Now what we want to do is ensure that we have wage selected as our dependent variable and then gender, race, union, education and experience selected as our independent variables. What we are then going to do is select OK, and we will see our regression output appearing. We've already interpreted this regression output in our chapter 1 example. What we want to do now is say that given gender, race and union all have significant impacts on wages, what would happen if we interacted these with education and experience? So for instance, in this regression we're assuming that an extra year of education or an extra year of experience increases wages by the same amount for those who are male and female. We're also saying that gender and race are independent of each other. It may be that female non-white workers are further discriminated against rather than just female and just non-white workers. So we can capture these effects in what are called interaction terms, where we interact a dummy with another dummy variable or when we interact a dummy variable with a continuous variable. What we are going to do now is we're going to show how we can actually create these variables. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to compute a variable, so transformation compute variable, and we're going to generate a variable for gender and race. And we're going to do this as a function of gender times race. Now, what we want to do is just rename our variable, create a new variable, and then put in the numeric expression. The interaction term is one variable multiplied by the other. Once we've done this, we can select OK. We will see that in our SPSS output window we've got the compute command running. And when we look at the actual variable, what we can see is we've created a new one here, gender race. Now in order to actually estimate the model with this included, we simply select Analyze again, we select Regression and Linear. All we want to do in this instance is add the gender race element to our list of independent variables. And we now have this interaction between gender and race controlled for. We can select OK, and this produces new regression output for us. And this is essentially the regression output presented in table 3.2 of Gujarati, where what we can see is we have the same list of independent variables as we had before, but with this gender race interaction added. Now, in our case this variable is not significant, and this indicates that the interaction of gender and race does not actually have an effect on wages. So, i.e. those who are female and non-white are not discriminated against over and above those who are female and those who are non-white. So there's no compounding factor here. Now, when we actually want to progress this analysis, we can introduce further interaction terms between our dummy variables and our continuous variables. So we can create these again by going to our Transform and Compute Variables option. Now, when we're computing these, we are going to compute 6 variables, the interaction of each independent variable, that's a dummy, with our 2 variables, education and experience. So let's create our first variable, which we're going to call D2 ED. So this is the interaction of gender and education. And we select OK. And this is going to create our new variable. Okay, so I've sped the video up so that we don't have to watch me recreate all those variables. We do all the other variables in the same way as we did the first one, where I've now created 6 additional variables, the interaction of D2, D3 and D4 with education and experience. What we're now going to do is run our analysis incorporating these, and this will essentially recreate 3.3 in Gujarati. So again, we select our linear regression model. We're not going to include our interaction of gender and race, but we are going to include our D2 to D4 interaction terms here. So we include them in our model, we select OK, and we reproduce our new regression output. What we can see here is that we've interacted our variables and we've added 6 new variables to our model. We can see that the sig value is still less than 0.1, indicating significance. Our R-squared is 33.3%. In terms of the significance of our variables, some are now no longer significant. Okay, so for instance, our gender variable is insignificant at the margin. Education and experience are still significant. What's of interest are these interaction terms. So D2 is gender multiplied by education. And how we interpret this, as it's minus and as it's significant, is that each additional year of education that a female obtains gets less remuneration than the corresponding year of education a male receives. So it means that there's less of a return to education for females. The same in terms of experience. So for each additional year of experience a female obtains, she will earn less vis-a-vis her male counterpart. So these interaction terms have shown up an interesting new dynamic in our analysis. In our first analysis, we saw that females earned less than males, and in this analysis what we've done is extend it to show that for each additional year of education and experience, females actually get less of a reward for those additional years than males in terms of their wage. So this recreates tables 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3 in Gujarati.